This is called NFTs to transform real estate and beyond.
All right, let's begin. The topic of today's panel is NFTs to transform real estate and beyond. It's a very broad topic, just like real estate, which is $200 trillion opportunity of both residential and commercial. So let's begin with a quick intro. I'll kick us off, guys, right? My name is Bobby Singh. This is my 5th year. It's great to see this community just grow. I remember the first time, it was like 200 people. I got a free ticket, so I was glad. Got me into NFTs. I'm the founder of Nifty Sky DAO. We just kind of digitize space real estate, such a thing. And I'm just glad to be here with the panel. Since it's an expert panel, I don't have to pretty much moderate much. Hopefully you guys could take care of it, but off to you, Ori.
Appreciate it. Hi guys, my name is Ohayon, co-founder of On-Chain Listings. I was the founder of a company called NFT Basel prior to that. And before my career in Web3, I was a banker. So I started off at Goldman Sachs. I was on the digital asset desk. And then TD Securities, where I traded derivatives. And now I've jumped wholeheartedly into Web3, and now I'm on my second company.
Hello, everybody. My name is Georgina. I am the CEO of Ravamia. I got into the Web3 space by learning first about cryptocurrency, and I fell in love with blockchain technology more and how it can help people in underrepresented communities get out of poverty. So being an Afro-Latina myself, I had such a passion of helping my community grow financially, and combining real estate and blockchain technology, I feel, is definitely one of those avenues.
My name is Tory Ricalis. I am co-founder of On-Chain Listings with my partner, Ori. I am a traditional construction manager and real estate developer in Toronto. Got into NFTs back in 2017 with the birth of CryptoKitties, and have been involved in the blockchain space since around 2011. To me, the real true marriage between NFTs and real world use case is definitely reached with real estate. Truly believe in it and looking forward to see how we can change the game and, change this archaic industry.
Great, that's awesome. Thanks for the intros. As mentioned, this is a very broad topic, but let's dive right into the impact. Who are the, given that such a broad concept, topic, who are the different stakeholders? How does the use of NFTs really impact, whether it's in a transaction, whether it's buyer, seller, lending, title? Do you want to kick us, anyone, or you want to go?
Sure. Yeah. So look, since the initiation of NFTs, I fundamentally tried to look at them as kind of as a digital title, and it could be to a digital asset or a physical asset. The smart contract that underwrites it is basically just a method of transferring ownership of some kind of asset. So the first time I started messing around with NFTs was with physical paintings and trying to verify the authenticity, and then being able to track that ownership to the physical space and then moving it using the blockchain. So now that we're looking at real estate, it's probably one of the more complicated products. It's definitely one of the most regulated that we're looking at in the blockchain space. And by being able to use the blockchain to clean up an infrastructure that's so antiquated and so it's got so many intermediaries that lengthen the process and make it much more expensive to enter into the asset class in general. I think blockchain has a really strong opportunity to decentralize that, clean it up, and just make it cheaper for people to enter in the space.
I agree with that, with all those points. I also believe that it helps everybody in the real estate transaction using on our platform. By having everything on the blockchain, it helps agents close deals much faster. It helps whoever's selling their home get paid for their home much faster, and make sure that title information that they're receiving is accurate, and not having to go back to find out that information was actually not what they thought it was, even while working with the title company, which is very sad. Sometimes there can be very dirty deals happening between between title companies, the lending companies, and all of that. And sadly, in any industry, there's always going to be bad players. So we are hoping that by having all this information on the blockchain, it would make transactions much faster, it'd be transparent, and we can cut out people that are doing things in bad intention. and allowing people that want to own homes to actually own their homes, and that data that comes with owning that home as well.
Great points. I'd like to touch further on that, just to speak about the intermediaries involved and how many hands are truly involved in a transaction. And a purchase of a home or a sale of a home is typically your largest purchase and sale ever. So to give a piece of the pie to so many players, let's take the power back into the stakeholders, the buyer and the seller, and let's retain that power, retain more money from your transfer and from your sale or purchase, and again, keep it in your pocket as opposed to delivering it to so many parties who really don't do much in the whole scheme of the transaction. So with our API, we essentially allow brokers and agents to log in, and our smart contract essentially does all the heavy lifting for a lot of the lawyer work as well as the real estate broker work. So we're taking a lot of the heavy lifting away, and we are putting it back into the power of the people. And that's the goal of NFTs in real estate, I truly believe.
That's great. So Tory, you mentioned our API. I assume that's a part of a product for on-chain listings. And you, Georgina, you as well, like you are Remavina. Is that correct?
Ravamia.
Correct. Just wanted to kind of touch base on, because we all are entrepreneurs, what really drove you onto that entrepreneurship path, and how do you see your product, your service impacting broadly or in whatever capacity? So let's just touch base on that. Perhaps, Tory, with you in terms of on-chain listing, what drove you? You guys are founders, right? So what really drove you? And then Georgina, will come to you as well.
So I purchased my first home approximately 5 years ago. The amount of paperwork, the amount of back and forth between lawyers, insurance, this, that, and the other thing, it was a stressful experience. And again, it was the largest single purchase of my life, essentially my life savings going into a transaction. And again, I had a bad situation with a lawyer that essentially didn't look over the documentation properly, and 24 hours prior to closing, I was notified I had to come up with an additional $70,000. So to me, that right away left a bad taste in my mouth, and I realized that there's a much better way to do this sort of transaction. And that's what brought Ori and myself to create on-chain listings.
And I think also, like, one of the most exciting parts of being an entrepreneur, especially in an industry that's so misrepresented and misunderstood, is the ability to really fix a problem that everyone tells you is not possible to be fixed, right? There's too many people in between, everyone's bigger than you, everyone's more powerful than you, and essentially just step away, you can't touch real estate, it's too difficult. And I think that's the beauty in blockchain, and especially NFTs. Over the years coming to NFT.NYC, you see people coming here trying to solve problems, trying to prove that blockchain as a ledger, as a method of transferring data and tracking it, is extremely, extremely powerful and has the ability to fix these industries. So probably the most rewarding part of, especially like building OCL, is watching how much you can save someone by just conducting the transaction on chain. One of the biggest things we're going for is basically making real estate cheaper to the lower end of the real estate market, because like Tory said, like the closing fees on properties, especially in the US, is outstanding, and a lot of the time people back away from purchases because the closing fees are so much. So if OCL is capable of cutting out those costs, cutting out the intermediaries, making that data transparent, and essentially cleaning up the entire title sector, then that's the goal of being an entrepreneur, I think, is solving a problem, not trying to find one with your product.
Well said.
Right. Well, I love being an entrepreneur because I love seeing problems and finding a solution to it, right? That is why I became a chemist as well. I love seeing that there's a problem in our healthcare system and finding a solution in terms of medicine, right? So I have a strong passion for real estate, and being from an underrepresented community, I have seen that not many of us actually own homes, right? So it was wonderful for other people to be able to purchase a home, but a lot of us were just scraping by to pay rent, and of course we had a horrible credit score. So with Ravamia, you can actually, if you are renting and you own crypto or you own fiat, you can actually improve your credit score on our platform by paying your rent on there. And by increasing your credit score, now you can go onto the buying side of our platform to purchase a home with crypto or fiat. So allowing us And if you can't even purchase a home, but you're slowly improving your credit score, you can go into the tokenization aspect and slowly start making a second income from just putting in $20 or $200 based on the different type of home investment that we have on our platform. So it's addressing all these different issues that our many communities have, especially coming from a family of immigrants where some people couldn't even have like actual bank accounts because we didn't even have a U.S. citizen can say, hey, I'm a U.S. citizen, let me have a bank account. So that's the freedom that cryptocurrency actually creates. So even if you can't say, hey, I have a bank account, let me get a mortgage. You can use cryptocurrency to purchase a home and say, well, now I can purchase a home, and that's the freedom of it, and that's what I'm really passionate about, creating that as well as the importance of having a clean title, which is very beneficial as well.
That's awesome, Georgina. I mean, I love that passionate where you are really providing access to those that are disenfranchised in a way by utilizing crypto to that effect. So that's awesome. Just a quick follow-up to all the panelists here. Like, are you focusing on residential? Are you focusing on commercial? Is it agnostic? Is there certain demographics, certain geographic area that you are testing out the use case? Or what are we looking at here?
So Ori and myself have been working on OCL for the last 2 years. We were originally approached by stakeholders in the Cayman Islands to tokenize some real estate for them. And upon discovery, we realized that they abide by the old Roman code where they physically, both parties have to be there, purchaser and seller, hand in hand, do a handshake, have a notary there. So we realized the digitization of real estate in that jurisdiction would not work. We were then approached again by another company out of El Salvador, obviously with El Salvador becoming Bitcoin, prominent and all that jazz. They approached us about a project at Bitcoin Beach, and again, just because of the old code and as well as the laws and just the bureaucracy and the political aspect of El Salvador, we weren't able to launch our product there. So Ori and I took a step back and we involved a couple partners, one being a title lawyer, one being a prop tech gentleman, and he's already launched 2 prop tech products. They really helped us hone in on what jurisdictions we'd be able to kind of facilitate these sort of transactions on. So we're focused right now on the Florida region, specifically Miami. And again, the reason why we selected that area is because of their acceptance of blockchain and crypto as well. So Mayor Suarez is obviously a huge proponent for blockchain and Web3. So that's kind of how we figured out where to go and where to start.
Great, that's awesome. Georgina, you want to add?
Well, being a New Yorker, I know the New York market very well, so that is why we're starting in New York. We actually are running our beta with a lot of agents in the city. So it's a very closed beta currently, and we plan on launching to the public in the summer, so we're very excited about that. And of course, being home to many immigrants, I really feel like this would be a wonderful place to start to test on different demographics and seeing where it goes from there. We're very excited about it.
So it's awesome that, I've heard on this panel the common thematic keywords of transparency, access, blockchain, digital ledger, clean title. It seems like it removes a lot of the inefficiencies that are plagued in this archaic ecosystem, right? With so many different stakeholders. And given that there's so many different stakeholders, I want to now turn on the other side and say, okay, well, what are the disadvantages in terms of how do we deal with these stakeholders? Because I have something on the blockchain, I have the title, it's clear, it's represented whether private blockchain, public blockchain, hybrid, Ethereum, et cetera, it doesn't matter. But then how do you enforce this at a county level? How do you enforce this at, in a more local level? Because at its heart, real estate is very localized, isn't it? So anyone that want to take that up?
Yeah, so we keep saying decentralize and that we're going to cut out all the intermediaries. It's a bit aggressive, to be honest, because the goal is not to destroy jobs. I think the goal is to prove that we can make jobs more efficient, we can get rid of paperwork, we can reduce inefficiencies in the process. So, for example, title lawyers and real estate brokers, we could very easily automate and decentralize the entire process and get rid of the regulation and just say, we're going to transact like this. But that's not the goal for pretty much any of us here. for example, like with OCL, what we're trying to do is actually just create portals where we can automate the tedious paper-focused parts of a real estate transaction. So the closing statements, for example, the title searches, things that would cost you $100 up to like $1,000. Let's try to clear those up, cleaning up time both for the lawyers and for the buyer side and the sell side. So now you're talking about cleaning up a couple $1,000s out of a transaction, making it significantly faster. None of the stakeholders who would be making money in that transaction should be opposed because essentially we're just making their job faster. So fine, you're not conducting 5 transactions at $5,000 a day, you're conducting 20 at 2. And you're still coming out on top, you're still conducting more volume, you're gaining a better reputation because you're able to deal with a greater array of clients. So in the end, it's a win-win for everyone, but per transaction, it's going to become less. And I think that's the goal, is we want to conduct more volume at a lower cost. And I think that's kind of the purpose of all blockchain products.
Georgina, anything to add there?
I mean, we all have the same goal in mind, so that's
Right.
exactly what we're all trying to do. Is same with Revamia. You come on our platform, especially for first-time home buyers, where the process can be become very overwhelming, and you might not know what might be the next step. By having everything on our platform, you can see every single step. From now, the title company is going to verify that all the information is correct, to escrow, to communicating and signing paperwork. All of that has can obviously, like mentioned, can become very much created much faster and more transparent, just like the blockchain, right? So it's all about getting rid of these systems that are very slow and making them much faster and transparent.
Just to touch on that, I think the environmental and socio impact on that is very, we're able to eliminate a lot of the paper in the transaction, which obviously, going green as a company going forward is definitely a big thing everyone's looking at, right? Whether you're Google or whether you're Yahoo or whoever you are, you're looking to cut down on your paperwork, cut down on your waste. So I think it cleans up a lot of the transaction, and again, it just helps the environmental aspect of things. So we're very excited to where things are heading.
Great. I know we only have a couple of minutes, but I'm going to touch on a few things here. I know, Ori, you mentioned that we want to preserve as many jobs as possible. That's not the goal, but who is part of the stakeholder list that we've defined? Who is most likely to get disrupted or should probably catch up to the technology or learn it in some fashion to just be relevant in the future while this industry goes through that paradigm shift? So
that's basically what we're trying to build. We have a node system that is basically a portal for brokers and title lawyers where they can log in and they can essentially give digital sign-off on these transactions. So their job's not changing, just the method in which they're conducting it changes a little bit. Their fees remain the same, their clients remain the same. We're not changing pretty much any part of their job other than they're not conducting these transactions through emails. So there will require education on that part, 100%. But that industry hasn't been touched in a very long time, and the fact that we're still selling and moving titles on email is a little bit ridiculous. So all we're doing is creating portals that allow people to conduct their existing jobs. We're at step one, we don't want to piss anyone off, right? Like, we want to keep everyone's jobs. We want to essentially just create opportunity versus destroying it.
Exactly, and especially if a person is using this to flip homes, or if they want to sell because of whatever urgency they need to sell their home for, creating this process that usually takes 6 months to a year to making it much faster by just creating a transparent platform where everybody can communicate and also sign paperwork and see every single step of the process and not get anything lost in communication, because with these kinds of transactions, it's all about communication, right? It's like, oh, I didn't know that you didn't sign this, or I didn't know what was the next step. And although we have amazing real estate agents, it just happens sometimes. Things just get lost in communication. So creating a transparent way where we can communicate and have a clear step-by-step process to what actually entails in the real estate transaction is what's very beneficial.
Yeah, Definitely couldn't agree more with both comments. Another thing I'd like to just add is, again, to Ori's point, we're not trying to take anyone's jobs away. We're not trying, a massive disruption right off the bat. Our goal is a slow burn. And Bobby, just to answer your question, the stakeholders who will be affected most, I think the title insurance companies are going to be affected the most, because what we're doing, obviously, with OCL and Georgina's company is we're taking away a lot of the fraudulent activity, the human error that, a real estate agent or a title lawyer may, input in their data, which screws up the entire transaction. Then the title insurance has to get involved, and it's just a long, drawn-out process. So everything that we're all trying to accomplish here is just good for every stakeholder, and it just makes the world a better place.
So true, Tory. We didn't even touch on the concept of fraud. That's a whole topic in itself. But I know, Ian, you had a couple of questions. You had a question itself, right?
Well, it's interesting. This is our last panel. Can we just start by giving our panel a hand? And I'm just going to come interact with you guys for a moment. So unique that I got to interview both of you this year, Ori and Tory. Usually I try to grab a lot of the key speakers every year. I've done about 500 of these interviews over the last 5 events that we've done. And I just found the conversation to be so incredibly compelling, because when you think about what's going to happen with on-chain listings and all of the other companies that will rise up and be collaborators and competitors and drive the industry forward, the amount of time and money that will be saved across real estate is so much more important than what's going to happen with cars, right? With the DMV. I mean, important, but not as nearly as important as real estate. So one of the things I want to make sure that was really clearly articulated today, and maybe we could end with this, with the 4 of you guys saying this, and I'll kind of conclude and wrap us up. What is the most optimistic view, doesn't have to be utopic, anti-dystopic view, that you can imagine if you look 3, 5, 10 years out with this technology maturing and people adapting to it? Tory, please start.
So for me, I believe, or I hope in the next 3 to 5 years, there is a lot more onboarding of Web3 and blockchain, and people need to understand that it's not just crypto, it's not just NFTs, it's not anything of that nature. The blockchain is the truest of the true ledger data, technologically advanced kind of, database out there. So to me, it should make sense that everyone wants to be involved. You want to cut down on the bureaucratic red tape. You want to cut down on all the processes and intermediaries. So that, to me, is what I'd like to see in the next 3 to 5 years, is everyone, working to work on chain and making the process a lot safer, easier, transparent, and less fraudulent.
Please.
My view is we will still be onboarding people that don't know technology. Even now in Web 2 space, a lot of people still are having trouble with email, right? So the biggest part is onboarding people, but people using the technology without knowing that they're using the technology, right? So by being a part of a platform where you are being a part of a real estate transaction and you don't even know that you're using NFTs, that you're having this information stored on the blockchain, but when you log in, you can actually see your home information and it's always up to date. That is what's amazing, right? So being able to, how we currently are, we use a bank or we use email, we don't necessarily know how it all works, but it's the same thing with how I envision the future being, where we are having all our information on the blockchain, people paying with crypto or fiat, allowing that accessibility to real estate and to increase the way that we actually are able to increase how we invest into real estate and accessibility of those that are being a part of the real estate transaction.
I think for my end, the most idealistic view is probably to have a uniform book of record for all real estate. So regardless of what country you're from or where you live, having a book of record that matches between Canada, between the US, between Mexico, with Africa, wherever it is in the world, where all property titles are stored in one publicly accessible database, and all that information is publicly available. There's no more intermediaries blocking that data and basically making it more expensive and more difficult to conduct those transactions. And I think in order for that to happen, we need to do a better job of blurring the lines between Web 2 and Web 3. We basically need to say that NFTs are just a new smart contract that we're conducting transfers with, and that is on the back end of Web 2. So it's not Web 2, Web 3, Web 2.5. I think it's just a new method of using the internet, a new method of using the web. It's much more idealistic, but I think we just have to learn to blur that line more and work more in unison versus scaring each other off and building like higher walls.
So I love, all these are great points. I'll just add one thing. When I mentioned beginning of this session, $200 trillion, that $200 trillion is illiquid. So I think the killer blockchain app for real estate will be one that does record keeping, and also the liquidity portion where that is maybe perhaps in a fractionalized way that is also compliant, that has the buy-in, the blessings from state ordinances and different geographic municipalities, etc. So it's really record keeping and the fractional ownership, or where you can say, hey, I own Empire State Building, I own $1 of it, and you're just as powerful if you own $1 billion of it. I think that level of community into blockchain to unlock that $200 trillion to be as fractionalized and as liquid as possible, I think is also the future.
Let's give our panel a hand, everybody. Thank you so much.